Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to The Difference and the Good Human series that is hosted by Holly Haggard, good friend of mine, great person, good human. And Holly has created a show, and today's going to be a unique show. I don't know if you saw it in the ads that we put out, but this is going to be a serious show talking about the human trafficking, child sex trafficking, and give everybody an opportunity to try to help, and we're going to bring some awareness to that. I'm going to bring Holly in now. Hello, Holly.
Hey, Lyndon, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm covering
up a few. Yeah. So Holly, for those of you, Holly is a trooper. She has been in for maintenance and.
So to speak.
But she's been on a couple of shows since then, and just really a warrior and a fighter, and great person, good human. Love this concept of your show, and today is going to be. I tell you what, I've been really anxious because I want to know more about what's going on, and so I mean, this is the perfect platform to do that. And having said that, tell everybody a little bit about who you are, and then we're gonna bring in Kristi, our featured guest today, and then we've got a secret surprise guest for later.
Yeah, we have a special guest. And I forgot to bring my tissues in here. So as obviously you can see, I'm Holly. This is my show called The Good Human series, and I'm trying to promote businesses, humans, people that are doing good and trying to make change and trying to just make this world a better place to live in. Who doesn't want that, right?
Right.
I do mortgage loans. I've been doing mortgages for 19 years. So that is my full-time job. And then I have a side gig that I absolutely love, which is where, this is really exciting for me to talk to Kristi as well, with her being in fitness. I sell activewear. And it's by Zaya, and I love it. FabFit 101 is the name of my my group page if you want to join. And then just this special guest, I know him personally, and I know that what he speaks is the truth, and I know that some of the stories that he may share they're really gonna touch some people's hearts. And what Kristi is doing with her prize money, and we need to promote her and vote for her. What she's doing with her money that she wins, you guys, this show, you've got to stay tuned, because this show is just going to rock your world. It is going to change your heart. It's going to change your core, your inside. And I think it's going to be something that you will probably watch over and over and over.
I agree. And please share with your friends and family and whoever, because the more people. Yeah.
Sorry, Lyndon. If you guys have questions during the show for any of our guests, or for me or for Lyndon, please, chime in. Feel free to chime in and ask questions, and we'll get to them, as we're able to. I'm very excited about this show. I'm very excited about it.
Me too. So let's bring in Kristi now. Hello, Kristi. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it so much. It's good to see you both.
Hey,
you too. So crazy story. Holly, you know a little bit about me and my social media obsession, or my service media obsession, as I call it, because I had to change my mindset. But I am on social media 24/7, and I get this message the other day, and I always read them. For some weird reason, I always read them, and I started reading this one, and I get a lot of the fitness ones and the contests and stuff like that. And for some reason, I didn't dismiss it. I kept reading. And when I got into the middle of it, I realized it was much more than someone in a fitness contest, that this was a good human. And there's two things that are happening within this contest that is really, there's an opportunity to benefit so many people, so many deserving and worthy people. And so now I want Kristi to share tell everybody who you are, Kristi. Share a little bit about what this contest is about. share what with the Homes for Wounded Warriors, a little bit about that, and then let's talk a little bit about what your plan is when you win. I'm not going to say if you win. I'm going to say when you win, to do with the prize money that is substantial.
All right, when you win, I like it. Thank you. Well, I started my health and fitness journey about 6 years ago, and I started it very slowly. And then after a couple of years, I fell into a really deep depression. I'd really only been toying with the health and fitness, going to the gym a couple of times a week, maybe at the most. But I had a friend in the business and in the industry, and she kept pulling me along. But I fell into this depression. Some medication caused it. And really the only thing that would get me out of bed most mornings was going to the gym. That's how much it had come to mean to me, just in terms of it was the one thing that gave me hope. And if you've been in the depths of a depression, you know what losing hope feels like. And it really may have saved my life. So that said, I fought my way out of that, stopped the medication. It took months and months before it finally was out of my system and I was myself again. But I had developed this passion for health and fitness. It saved my life, right? So I compete now. At age 50, I started competing as a bikini competitor in bodybuilding. And I'm 52 now. And I've wondered, what could I do with what I have accomplished? What can I do with the hard work I've put into health and fitness? And I know what it's done for me. It's also given me a self-confidence. And I tell people this a lot, that I wish I could bottle up and give away for free by the truckloads, because that is how it has made me feel. And I feel like if everybody could feel that way, we could change the world. So I don't want to be a trainer. I don't want to be a nutritionist. I love all of that, but it's not my calling. So I was wondering, what could I do with this? Well, this competition came along, and it was a chance to help wounded war veterans, because it's a fundraiser for the Homes for Wounded Warriors. And what they do is they go in and they rehabilitate or build from scratch homes for veterans who've come home from war or service and are injured. And they go in and they do all of that for them. So I saw that in this competition. It's a competition for men's health and fitness, to be on the cover. You get a $20,000 cash prize. And I thought, what could I do with the cash prize? I could go ahead and give it also to the Homes for Wounded Warriors Foundation, but it wasn't hitting me in the heart enough, because what I wanted to do with what I had discovered for myself, was I wanted to reach the most vulnerable, women who see other women objectified but not appreciated. That's where my heart wanted me to go with this. And I haven't even been on board with this for very long, because I had heard of human trafficking. I just didn't know how I could get involved, right? But then recently, the Treasured Vessels Foundation came into my life. Someone mentioned it to me, and I thought, this is it. Who else can I help that's any more vulnerable than these young girls and these young women who are caught up in the sex trade? They're being sold for sex. Who more vulnerable can we help? So that's where I'm putting my resources. If and when I win this competition, the $20,000 that I am given for that will be donated directly to the Treasured Vessels Foundation. What they do is they rehabilitate girls and young women who have been rescued from the sex trade. They give them the therapy they need, the aftercare they need, transportation. They house them. It's a long-term care program so that they don't run back into that way of life, so that they aren't homeless, and so that they don't run back to their captors.
Wow, that's awesome. There's so much that I want to unpack in this, and thank God we have an hour. That's probably not going to be long enough.
I agree. You know, I know Treasured Vessels as well. A good friend of mine works for them, and some of the stories that she's shared with me of, you know, what they do for these women. They have a boutique where they can have clothing, they can have dress wear for interviews, and they help mentor them and teach them how to interview, and they, you know, find jobs for them. It's a really amazing organization that you're donating to, Kristi. It's just, what you're doing is amazing. So
it is amazing.
Everybody vote. Just y'all start voting. And let me tell you, this voting only goes until 9 p.m. tomorrow night, right, Kristi?
10 o'clock Central Time tomorrow night. Yes.
Okay, 10 o'clock Central tomorrow night. So you guys, the link is going to be scrolling. Please go in and vote. It doesn't cost you a dime to do that. Vote, vote, vote. Tell your family to vote. Tell your friends to vote. Let's get Kristi that prize money so that she can further help these women and children.
Absolutely. The link will also be in the comments. I think I put that in there earlier. I'll put it in again during the show. That way, a little easier. We just click on it and go there. One of the things that, of course, we're becoming more and more aware of the severity and just how deep the child trafficking is. And so if you're paying attention at all, you should see what's going on. And as I was saying before, and we'll get more into this, for me, it was just really hard to wrap my head around the fact that there's actual demand for that. But you guys just said something, and I don't want to get too far in it before we bring our other guest in, but about keeping them from going back. And I don't think that we understand that. And you help me, because both of y'all, have a connection with Treasured Vessels. So help me understand and help people understand that may be like me, how the type of person that gets caught up in this, and the fact that they don't have a lot of times they don't have family, they don't have loved ones, they don't have the type of anybody to go to once they're rescued, right? And so isn't that a little bit about what Treasured Vessels does for them?
Absolutely. Go ahead, Kristi. I'll let you talk first. You're my guest, and I really want to hear from you. So I'll let you talk first, and then I have a couple of things I'll add to it.
Great. Well, and that's what it is. It's a lot of times the women who are the young girls who come from a broken home, perhaps come from homelessness. Some of them are immigrants, but more than you realize are domestic as well, and all ages. And I've been hearing such horror stories. The Treasured Vessels Foundation currently has housing for 18 to 24-year-olds, but they're building housing and expect to have it finished and available in 2021 for 9 to 17-year-olds. And it happens even younger than that. I know, Holly, you were telling me a story this week about 2 stories about women younger than that. But the ones that they are able to bring in and help rehabilitate are those who have said, yes, I'm ready. Right? Because there are so many that they pull them out, they go back, they pull them out, they go back. But these are the girls who've said, I'm ready to get help. I want out. Please help me. And a lot of times they sit down with them and they feel they're just so broken. Their mental scars are so deep that the therapy is intense. And they feel, and where I come in, where it pulled at my heartstrings, is where these girls feel fat. They let themselves go. They don't feel attractive. And they just are looking for anybody to make them feel whole, right? To make them feel good again. And so no matter what happens with this $20,000 prize money, which I would love to be able to give to them as an immediate impact, I'm getting involved. And, however I can, I'd love to. Alicia Bush and I, she's the founder of Treasured Vessels. She and I have talked briefly about possibly a mentorship program, putting some strong, healthy-minded women side by side, these young girls, to walk them through their path to wellness. So that's what we're looking at. But Holly, I know you had more you wanted to add.
Yeah, I was going to say that's one thing that my next guest may be able to help with as well, because they have some resources that I believe will be extremely helpful to Treasured Vessels and to the women. These captors, they break these women and children. They break them and they make them feel as if they are nothing. They make them feel like that this is all they deserve. And there are children, guys, there are children much younger than 9 years old that are caught up in this. I've done some research, some extensive research, and it's gut wrenching. It is gut wrenching. It is worse than a horror film that you could ever watch. It is real life. It's happening here. It's overseas. It's here. It's in our backyards. It's something that we really, really need to spread the word, whether it's through social media or, I don't know how. We have to get this out there. We have to get the word out. And I think that Some of the stories that my next guest may share will probably, it'll really, I believe it will help encourage more and more people to get out there and do something. Even if you can't be in the trenches and you can't be the one that is actually saving that child personally, physically, you can in other ways. And this is one of the ways that you can help.
Absolutely. And just want to remind everybody that we have at the bottom, it's scrolling, and then also in the lower thirds is how to vote for Kristi. Give her the opportunity to win this contest so that she can donate a $20,000 prize to Treasured Vessels. And that is a rehabilitation program for those that have been victims of the sex trafficking and human trafficking. So please vote for her. You can also look in our comments, and I put the link in there as well. It's really easy to do. It takes less than 2 seconds and doesn't cost you anything. This can be a powerful, powerful, powerful way for us all to help and make the difference. So we've got, I want to bring in our next guest probably in about the next 4 minutes, probably a little earlier than what I thought, but I want to, Kristi, tell us a little bit about the contest itself, when you got started, where you are now. I know you're in the semifinals now, if I have that right, correct?
Yes, that is correct. The contest started back on July 21st. So it's a marathon. And I've survived several rounds. There were thousands and thousands of women in it. And it was narrowed for the semifinals, which we're in right now. It was narrowed down to 64 competitors, all ladies. And we're vying to become the 8 finalists, and the finals start next week. So like I said, it's a big fundraiser for the Homes for Wounded Warriors Foundation. Free votes. There are some paid warrior votes, but all of them, every vote counts. So you're right. This is a free way, an easy way to show support, to learn about what's going on, and to make a difference. So tomorrow night, 10 o'clock is the end of this finals, and the semifinals, and I have to be in first place by 10 o'clock tomorrow night in order to advance to the finals. And right now, I think I'm sitting in fifth, it might be fifth place, but we keep bouncing around. It's going to be that way right up until 10 o'clock tomorrow night.
Right.
Hey, Kristi, let me ask you this. So whenever I went in to vote for you the other day, I noticed a place that said purchase votes. So is it possible? Can somebody purchase additional votes if somebody were to want to donate money towards this, or to help push you along even faster?
Yes. So you'll see 2 links once you go in. You to the link at the bottom of the screen. You'll see 2 links. Then it says warrior vote. That's the paid vote, and then free vote. So you click which one you want to do. The free vote just is a vote for me. The warrior vote is also a vote for me. And I believe there's a $10 minimum, but the money from that is what benefits the Jared Allen Homes for Wounded Warriors Foundation. So that's where all the proceeds from this competition will go, is to that foundation. So yes, you've got the 2 ways to vote, but they can do a paid warrior vote, is what they call it.
Is that the Jared Allen football player? Jared Allen?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. The Chiefs drafted him. I think it was in 2004.
Yeah. So I want to remind everybody again to vote. It's in the comments. Also, please share, do a watch party, whatever you can do to help get more awareness out, not only for the contest. I mean, that's big, but just bringing the awareness, because the more we learn, the more we understand, the more I think we can do to help make an impact in something that I think is probably one of the most incredibly horrible things that we can do. So we've got, I think it's your friend here, Holly, that Cassie just voted. Awesome. Thank you, Cassie. We appreciate that. So now here's what I want to do. I want to, and we're going to keep talking about the voting, and we're going to keep talking about Kristi. But right now I want to bring in our secret special guest. And I'm going to let Holly introduce this person, because you know a little bit more about him than I do. We are keeping the identity private, simply because this is as you'll find out through the conversation, it's these people have to remain anonymous. They really do, in order to be effective in their job. it's important. I've already spoken with him, and I have got it or given him permission to tell me that whatever question I'm asking, he cannot answer. So that may happen. I may ask a question that for various reasons he just doesn't feel comfortable answering those questions. So Holly, I'm going to turn it to you now and let you introduce our next guest.
All right. So this person, this man he's such an amazing man, and I've known him for quite some time through mutual contacts, and what he's done is beyond incredible. He is the founder of Freedom Shield, and that is another foundation that I would like to really start supporting and helping to build, their foundation so that they can continue to do what they do. His name is Ro. That's who we're speaking today with. And Ro, tell us a little bit about Freedom Shield. Tell us a little bit about you and how we can help you, and then share some of your stories.
Sure. Thank you so much for the invite. It was great meeting both of you, or talking to you again, Holly. Thank you. Freedom Shield Foundation is a current name that we've been operating under for last year. We've had to change our name a couple of times. It's evolved, if you will, over the last 10 years. And 2009 November is when I started the organization on Thanksgiving Day. And I had received an email from a nurse friend of mine who had just left an orphanage outside Nairobi, Kenya. And she, in that email, she said about 2:30 in the morning on Thanksgiving Day in 2009. And she said that 15 men had broken into an orphanage to rob the place. And there was 33 kids and the house mother. And they ended up going in and beating the house mother nearly to death. And they ended up gang raping the 14-year-old little girl and the 10-year-old little girl. And that moment, just that righteous anger that swells up in any person, where you're immediately you feel like you're called to action. Well, I will fast forward for part of our mission, even now as Freedom Shield Foundation, is our Orphan Secure program. And we basically help orphanages that are in harm's way anywhere in the world. We help them with their kidnappings. We help them with the extortions. We do all that pro bono. We have a lot of men in our organization that have that kind of background. And we support about 5,800 kids over 14 nations right now over the last 10 years. When we started in securing orphanages in 2009, little did I know that within 6 months we would get involved in countering human trafficking. We operate, I'm a former FBI agent, and most of the guys that work alongside volunteer their time. They come from the FBI, they come from the CIA, they come from the Special Operations Forces, the military. They have analytical backgrounds, they have cyber backgrounds. So over 10 years, we've been able to build a really good Rolodex, if you will, of people that have been involved with us. We have operated internationally to include the U.S. And we base a lot of the work that we do around these 8 human trafficking models. And human trafficking, I don't think that anybody really knows the true number today globally. I've heard a number, when I started it was 27 million. 10 years later, we're like 40 million. And I don't know that anybody really knows, but I'll tell you that we've had more slaves today around the world than in any modern time in our history. I was sharing with Lana a little bit that if you look at back in the 1860s, at the height of the Civil War, the U.S. had about 9 million population. And there was about 800,000 slaves during that time period at the height of the Civil War. And our country went to war over that issue. And when you look at 800,000 slaves out of 9 million, that's about 8% of the population was in slavery. And that was in our country. If you fast forward over 150 years later now, we have over 330 million people in our country. And on any given day, again, the stats, how do we truly know? But with the numbers we've heard is, as many as 250,000 people, women and children in our country that are being trafficked daily. And that's 8% of our population again. But now we're not going to war over that. We're doing hashtag campaigns and trying to, to think that that's going to bring freedom. And I will tell you that what we've seen abroad is that human trafficking is because of abject poverty. In a country like Thailand, you have a father who has to sell his oldest child to a trafficker that has come up to his city because he knows that in the months of October, November, December, the rice crops are down, and the family of 6 or 7 needs money. So a trafficker from Bangkok can go up to Chiang Mai and say, "I'll give you $900 for your daughter," and the dad ends up selling her, and they really believe this girl's going to come back, but she never comes back. And when we can get to a root cause like that and start, feeding villages and 40 families at a time, and to cover that gap, then not only are you disrupting trafficking, but you're feeding the hungry. So there are solutions at the lowest level, but it's because of poverty abroad. What we've seen here in the U.S. is that a lot of it is due to family breakdown. It's due to fathers not being home. And I always tell men that I get a chance to speak to that for those that do have their children that are raising children, I tell the men that are listening today that we need to continue to teach our boys honor and integrity. We need to teach them how to treat a woman. And likewise with mothers, I like to tell moms that they just need to keep reminding their daughters who they are and the identity that they are and how beautiful they are and how perfect they are the way they're made. And because here in the U.S., the U.S. falls under one of those human trafficking models that we look at. And I was mentioning earlier that when we do investigative work, which leads to rescues, we're looking at the model itself, and we're saying, okay, what does this mean? So, for example, the U.S. model itself for trafficking will consist of runaways. It consists of cyber online recruitment. It consists of runaways who have left home, who within 48 hours, 50% of them will be contacted by a pimp or a trafficker because they know where to find them, bus stops, malls, things like that. And this is because a young girl has ended up leaving home because of something that happened with another family member. And when we look at places like Mexico, we have 7 drug cartels, and we have at least 4 of which have command and control in major cities across America, including where we're at in Dallas. And a lot of these cartels have become organized crime groups because they went from just moving drugs to kidnapping people, to hot tapping oil wells and stealing from the wells, stealing from coal mines, kidnapping ransom. And when we started allowing all these and pushing for all these immigrants to come into our country, I don't think we realized the impact that it has on even those families that leave Honduras, El Salvador, and those countries, because they come for a better life, but they get intercepted at the border by these cartels to then say, oh, look, we can make money through child pornography. We can make money through human trafficking. And we have no idea how many victims didn't even make it to this country. So there's always a consequence to the decisions that we make. And I will tell you that coming back to the U.S., that the demand has made the United States the #1 trafficking country in the world. And in terms of trafficking, and that was from the State Department, Mike Pompeo, just early January. And when you look at countries in the world, and we talk about a destination nation, that would be a country like ours. When we talk about a source nation, we're talking about Russia that produces Ukrainian girls, and the Ukraine that produces Ukrainians, Chinese girls that come out of China. Those are considered source nations. Transit nations are the places that these girls will pass through to get to their ultimate destination. So other models that we look at, because our group for 10 years, we've targeted organized crime groups, we've targeted insurgency groups, terrorist groups. They're all involved in trafficking. This is just another means to an end for them. If they can make money by selling children, abducting children, and that money comes right back to fight their terrorist cause, it comes back to fight their insurgency cost to overthrow government. And for organized crime, it's just another way to make money. When you look at the Russian model, or we call it the post-Soviet model, it is the Russian groups look at women as a natural resource. So what's considered a natural resource? I drink a bottle of water, and when I'm thirsty, I drink a bottle of water. When I'm done, I throw it away. I may get thirsty 50 miles down the road. I stop into the convenience store and I get another bottle of water. Those bottled waters aren't connected to the other. I get the girl wherever the need arises. When you look at the Chinese groups, the Chinese account for 10% of the global human trafficking trade, including labor, including, the labor part is a big part. But their organized crime goes to the cities, and they come to dad and they say, hey, I can give your daughter a better life. They put her in debt bondage. She winds up coming to New York for 2 years. And they may not physically abuse her like say the Russians might their girls. But then these girls are brought out of New York. They're brought into small town America, small town Round Rock, Texas, where they might work at a massage parlor for a couple of months, and then maybe moved on to outside of Houston, Texas, to Conroe, Texas, and this becomes their life for the next probably 5 to 7 years until they're rescued, or until they something else happens to them. So we see it in massage parlors. We're seeing it through girls put in bars and cantinas in cities where you go into this bar and you pay $60 for a drink, and that includes the girl with it. And at the end of the shift, 2-3 in the morning, all the girls are collected, put in a van, and sent back to warehouse and put under lock and key again, only to start the next day. So human trafficking continues to thrive because, well, one, the demand is here in our country. We have a big demand for it. Secondly, because it's one of those where this is the only crime that I think I've ever seen where humans are using humans. Both the consumer and the predator are both humans, and we're viewing other humans as reusable commodities. Drugs, you could use cocaine, you have to go buy new cocaine, right? With humans, you can continue to get the same value off of the same woman. And it's not always women. Sometimes it's men, sometimes it's boys. So when we look at those kind of models, like the Chinese models, there's an Asian model, which includes the Japanese groups, which includes the Indian groups. We look at the Baltic models, or the Balkan models, which includes Albanian organized crime groups. Everybody has their way of how they traffic. Okay. But it ends up being the same thing: broken lives. And we've seen this evolve over 10 years. And we spent some time in Thailand as an organization, and we worked a lot with the national police forces there, mainly against Russian organized crime groups. And we were pretty successful with what we were doing with them. We went on to the Philippines. And for those of you that don't know, human trafficking consists of labor trafficking. It consists of organ trafficking. It consists of sex trafficking, and child soldiers and child soldier recruitment. The operations that we have in the Philippines, they've been ongoing now for about 6 years, and we've had great success with infiltrating child soldier camps that are being run by all these terror and insurgency groups. And we work well with the military. We work well with the national police force there. And I can show you all the photos of all the 8-year-olds that are getting pulled out, 6-year-olds, 15-year-olds wearing pajamas that are being shot because they pulled a weapon against the military, and they were brainwashed, little girls. And it's just sad to see how these families are brought into this, how these children are brought into this. We spent about 3 years in Iraq and Syria, watching what ISIS was doing to the Yazidis. And that was on the news for a very long time. And it took us a while. It took us a while to adjust to what we were seeing. And a lot of these men that I talked about that were part of our team were former military guys, and they had seen a lot of horrible things. But I'm telling you, the frustration and anger that boils up in a man that can't take action is really hard to contain sometimes. But we do that because we've always run a very professional organization. And I will tell you that we're good at developing people abroad that can work on our behalf. If we'd gone into Syria, we would have been arrested. the government, by our government or the Kurdish government. So we have to be good at developing our sources, our networks that in turn want to work on our behalf. And we train our guys really well to be able to go and do that without, obviously staying within the rule of law. In Iraq and Syria, we probably had over 2.5 years, about 550 girls that we wound up recovering directly from the hands of ISIS fighters. I remember eight-year-old girls that were taken at 8. Their parents were murdered the day they were taken, and we didn't recover them until 3 years later. So now we're bringing them back at 11, 12 years old, and they've been passed from ISIS fighter to ISIS fighter, and they were raped continually. And I can't even comprehend the level of trauma, but what I know that these girls do feel from our team is love. They feel loved. And you'll meet Carrie later on, I think hopefully next month in one of your shows, and Carrie will talk a lot about the work that when she's a part of our team now, and she's been with us a whole year, but she was working with us even when we were in Syria and Iraq. And she came to Iraq several times to help do the trauma care for a lot of these girls. And I'm just thankful that we had a lot of donors that supported us during that time period. And we tend to leave a small footprint where we go. We're pretty agile. There's a certain DNA to kind of come be a part of our team, and it's just guys that don't care for the limelight. And it's not about them. It's about the actual people, the girls that we're gonna recover. I will tell you that is the easiest part. The rescue, the recovery pieces. The hardest part is what Treasured Vessels has to do. That's when the real work begins. It's when you have to sit with a girl, American or otherwise, that you then have to bring back in a full restoration of who this woman, who this girl was before she was taken and brutalized the way she was. So we have the easier part. So I love seeing organizations like Treasured Vessels because we know them well, and they're a great organization. And
so I've got a couple questions for you, Ro. And
sure, Landy.
Number one, when you are rescuing these girls and you find these organizations, what is done to the perpetrators? What is done to the predators? Are y'all capturing them? Is someone capturing them, arresting them? And then what happens after that?
Well, that's a great question. I'll answer that in part. I will tell you that in a place like Iraq and Syria, even the networks and things that we had developed, we had over 3 years, we had two guys that died as a part of our team. It's not without its dangers. A lot of these ISIS fighters, I would say, probably ended up meeting justice, not in our hands though. Our teams were never, obviously our guys have to defend themselves, our networks do, but a lot of in war, it's a whole nother animal, right? So
right.
I will tell you that a lot of these terror groups that in the Philippines, for example, most of these kids that are taken out in quiet operations, early morning type deal. I will tell you that we did have a couple of recovery. We had about 121 rescues in Tripoli, Libya. And these were all Nigerian men who had been trafficked out of Nigeria up into the desert. And when they got there, they were put on an auction block to be sold immediately. The team that went in to get them was an organization that we had become very good at developing. And they probably had a pretty strong, they were a pro-American militia, if you will. And they went in and effected these rescues of these men. So they might have encountered the terror group. I forget who the terror group was that was holding them at the time, but they came in and pretty much defended themselves. So U.S. wise, the cases we are able to build, we pass all that on to law enforcement. And it's a different animal here in the U.S. We try to help law enforcement as much as we can. And there are other organizations similar to us that do that as well. Some use, special software. We're really good at surveillance and things like that. So we have a pretty strong skill set to where you can get a lot of the information over law enforcement to take action. Okay. The problem is nationally is that the laws differ from state to state. You might get punished for 3 years for the state of California, where Texas might be, 10. If the government gets you, it's a good 25 and up. So I think that we're between locally, state, and federal. I think there's still a lot of adjustment that needs to occur for us to be able to arrest more and more people.
Right. And that's one of the questions I was going to say is, why can we not have a more unified punishment? I would say, I mean, and I know that California, and I'm not well versed on it, I know that they just passed some law that, according to what I'm seeing, is not, it's kind of,
It's disgusting.
Yes.
Yeah, well, it is disgusting.
Yeah.
It is. I
Agreed.
But again, this whole, and so that leads me to my next question. And Holly and Kristi, if y'all have some questions too, please jump in. But so I was telling you when we first started talking, Ro, that I couldn't wrap my head around the fact that there's a demand for this type of industry. And then when I heard a couple of the stories, and I want you to share just in a little bit some of those details, if you don't mind, because I want it to rock the core of the people that are listening, because it did me. I mean, it shook me to the core. And I was explaining that I don't understand how I don't understand how you do your job, because like you said, I think you said something in the beginning, something, the anger or something like that. How do you, when you first got started and you really started to see the just evilness of it, how did that impact you? And how did you have to adjust your mindset to be able to do a good job and not let it destroy you emotionally or let your emotions get too involved?
Right.
Or do you?
Yeah, sure. I would tell you early on that when we were in Thailand, one of the generals there brought us these 6 children. They were all Malaysian, 3 boys, 3 girls, who were 8, 9, and 10. And he goes, "Hey, Ro, these 6 children escaped from a house. We found them on the street, but they were drugged and kidnapped, brought out of Malaysia into Thailand, and they were in a home with a bunch of other children where men were coming to have sex with them." And it was that moment that I knew this would be the calling. It's a calling for the rest of my life, and I was going to find the men that could be associated with it. I've never hidden my faith. I have a very strong faith in God as well. So that's really the answer to the second part of your question. Is it's being able to release it there and say, this is too much for me to handle in terms of the things we're seeing. I'm not telling you I don't get mad, that I don't get frustrated, don't get angry. I had to deal with a lot of things, even going to Iraq, bringing 4 more guys that had done battle there to that country to see what the level was going to be, how that would affect them. And I can tell you that there's nothing greater than seeing a child that hangs on a foreign military guy who's seen nothing but death and destruction. There's a healing process in that for them. But that's how I handle it. I'm able to separate. For my time in the FBI, there was a lot. I think early on, I was already pessimistic about the human race, and I had to get over that. It took me a while to get to see the goodness in people, and that there were a lot of good people out there,
right,
who did believe in justice and who believed in the rule of law and the things that apply that I think we've forgotten a little bit here in our country. And I'll tell you one of the stories the one that you're talking about, Landon, was one of our guys. He's been a part of our organization probably 7 or 8 years now. He's been in the Philippines with us. He's been in Iraq with us. We stay in contact regularly and love him to death. And this man has a warrior's heart. And he had sent me some information off of, I believe it might have been Instagram, if I recall correctly, where a little infant, a 6-month-old, was being sold. Or this had already occurred a week earlier. There was conversations of an infant, 6-month-old. Her mom was probably around 16 or 17, and she had sold her infant to be sexually abused or raped, I guess, is for lack of better terms, by men in a particular city in Georgia. And when I saw this, it was nauseating. to look at the conversations and how they were suggesting that, you know, $60 a guy that can make a ton of money off of this baby, and the mom telling her, you know, hey, if she screams, just give her the pacifier, you know, to keep her quiet. And you're reading this and you just can't believe this stuff. But this is, you know, having been with the Bureau, the Bureau's always had a great, they're great at online, at searching, hunting down child exploitation, stuff like this, child pornography. And even those guys are affected by it so much that they have to, you know, they can't stay on that squad for very long because they have to get moved off. And when you see this kind of stuff, it was just utterly disgusting. But when I got it, we took that phone number and we were able to basically locate it down in Louisiana. And this is maybe less than 4 or 5 days after the event occurred, but within an hour of receiving the information, within 2 hours, they already found, the federal task force down in Louisiana had already found the baby. With all the information we gave them, they were able to pull her out immediately.
Wow.
And they wound up building, I think the FBI wound up prosecuting and building a case on all those men that were involved in that, and the mother. They removed the child from where she was at. So our prayer is only that child will never have those memories affect her,
Yeah.
as she grows. But when, and I've seen that multiple times in 10 years, it's probably the third case I've seen involving infants like that. And so our average age, I think, in the U.S. right now of trafficked victims is 13. The average age amongst our victims is a minor, or minors, and 13 is around the age.
And you were saying earlier that the really the high risk are the ones with broken families and just really no family, no one. I guess no one really to know and or notify anybody that they're missing. So talk a little bit more about that and about how that where the cultural impact plays on that.
Sure. So if you look at the number, I think the numbers out there, and gosh, there's so many different sources, but an average year, I think the U.S. averages between 600,000 and 800,000 runaways. I believe the stat is that 98% of those ultimately return home. Okay. The other 2%, you know, we don't know if they're being trafficked. We don't know if they're dead. We don't know, you know, there's different stats for if an abducted little girl isn't found within 72 hours, the percentage of her being dead is high. So, but when we look at the missing children cases of every state, when you look at who has the highest missing kids on any given year, you're going to see states like California, Florida, Texas, and New York. When you look at the top 3 states for trafficking, you're going to see the identical thing. You're going to see California, Texas, Florida, and New York. So there's definitely a correlation to that, I believe, and we've seen that. We've run heat maps across the country of, you know, hey, do kids go missing around satanic holidays? You know, are there abduction where, you know, is it off of highways? Time, date, place. Are we seeing patterns? So we look at a lot of that stuff too when we do our investigations. But definitely children in the U.S. that have left home online. I'll tell moms and dads right now, if you don't have a relationship with your children, I don't care, as long as they're under your roof, say up to they're 17 or 18 years old, they're in high school, you need to know what your kids are doing. And I don't say that in a negative way, like a controlling way, but it's called conversation. It's called pulling the screen away from their faces, their little phone screen, so that they can talk and tell you what's going on in their lives. It's so important, because I will tell you that, at least I think Carrie will tell you that stat, but I believe it's like almost 100% of the victims that were approached online went willingly to meet their trafficker. And it's because the trafficker was not the real person that they were dealing with, they're talking to.
Right.
You know, so it's scary. And again,
extremely scary. That was one of my questions, was how do we as parents protect our children? I mean, I don't want to be paranoid every day of my life, but
right.
I go to a store, and if my daughter or my son is out of my sight for like a second, I start to have a panic attack.
Right.
Because I feel like somebody's just always watching, and I don't want to sound like I'm like just this paranoid person, but just doing as much research as I've done, you know, over the last few years, and knowing you and some others involved, it's just, it's one of those things where it's like you can't help but feel like you have to panic if your child goes around a clothing rack, you know, to hide.
Right.
You can't do that anymore. You know,
Yeah.
that
Well-
was the fun thing to do when you were a kid. You go hide underneath the clothing rack, and now
Right.
I'm like, I'll scold them. You know.
Yeah, I will tell you the other thing too that really astonished me about 4 or 5 years back is that there's even they're called Romeo pimps or lover boy pimps, and these are even high school students that are recruited by maybe a college age trafficker or pimp, who then will pay a boy in high school, you know, X amount of dollars to befriend a girl, and now, you know, the girl likes him, loves him, whatever. And it's a Romeo lover boy deal where, oh, I'm so in love. And then that request comes, hey, come with me to a party. And then, you know, she gets drugged and raped and extorted, you know, like, if you don't do this, then this is what's going to happen. I'm going to release these photos we took of you. And now the girl is stuck. And it's, I mean, now you even have to question your daughter's boyfriends, you know, and it's not about paranoia. It's about truly having conversations with your kids. I mean, we're the front line, and it's not, we can't throw it on the schools. We can't even throw it on the church, you know, to grow our kids for us or help us watch them grow. It's back on us as parents, and we're all busy, and I get it. And it's just very difficult to see that happen where the you know, sometimes you have to force yourself into your kids' lives just to see where they're at in their head.
Right.
Are they talking to somebody that you don't know about? You know, how many emails do they have? How many platforms are they on? Snapchat, are they on Instagram? What are they on? It's on, but not in the way where you don't trust them. It's got to be in a way where it's a conversational way to get that information from them.
Right.
Exactly. You have to keep that trust because you want them to continue to talk. One of the questions I had for you, Ro, was, you know, overseas, you know, when you were talking about a parent selling their child, I had this question for somebody that was on the other side where his team mentored the children, similar to Treasured Vessels. And they mentored the children that had been rescued and just kind of brought them back to trusting, knowing who to trust and that you can trust another person again. And, you know, he told me as well that a parent would sell their child. And I thought to myself, just being a parent myself, how can a parent sell their child? And I understand the story that you just told about the woman in Louisiana or Georgia, but that's a sick mind. But
Right,
some
sure.
of these parents, one thing I want people to understand is some of these parents overseas that they don't have the money and they don't know that they are selling their child to trafficker or to a terrorist group or a human trafficking group. They believe that they're selling their child to go work. And that's going to bring money to the family, or it's going to allow their child, like you said, to have a better life. And so it's not, I just want people to understand that sometimes it's not that it's not the parent being this vicious parent. I'm going to sell you so I can feed myself. You know, so if you could maybe elaborate on that a little bit.
Sure. And you're absolutely right, Holly. It's out of necessity. I will tell you that over 200 girls that we interviewed in Thailand, not one of them was from Bangkok. They were all from out of Bangkok, you know, the mountain country, they're humble families, and they were promised, you know, to be making $7 a day or a day, as opposed to making nothing where they were living. So when dad sells the oldest daughters to feed the other 5 or 6 people in his family, and they're signing contracts believing that this girl's going to come back. So it's not out of a vicious, reason. But there's always going to be somebody willing to exploit. And, you know, unless more organizations, you know, not just like ours, but, I get a lot of calls from other groups that want to launch in Australia, want to launch in India. So we do a lot of consulting for them. We just talk from our experience, from what we've seen in 10 years. We're anywhere between 3,400 and 3,500 rescues that we've had over 10 years. And just the last 3 years alone, we've had about over 2,000, and these are hardcore things. And again, we plan, we try to do everything with excellence for the very people. I get asked all the time, well, who are your clients? What's the victim? Well, how are they paying you? They're not paying us. And people can't even wrap their head around that we're doing this because this is a passion, not because we're doing it for money.
Right.
You know?
Right.
So real quick, we've got about 4 minutes left, and I want, is it Casey or Cassie, your
Casey.
friend? Casey has got a question. I don't know if you can see that row, but it's what should someone do if they are out and about and have a suspicion or see child sex trafficking happening? I want Ro to address that, just his advice. And then Kristi, I want to bring you back in. Thank you for being so patient, and talk a little bit more about the contest. And we really, folks, please share this show, vote, anything you can do to bring awareness to what's going on. So Ro, address that question if you would. And then Kristi, I want to bring you back in.
Yes, I will. This has happened. The problem, I think, that with what we're facing today is when nobody wants to do racial profiling, nobody wants to do, anything like that. I will tell you that the best thing to do in a case like this is it's not going to hurt to obviously notify the police if it's that obvious. Sometimes I have stopped a child that's pulling away from an individual and flat out said, "Hey, are you okay?" And you can tell right away if they're going to be challenged by the father or whoever the son is. Again, that's easier for me to do. I've done this long enough throughout my life. I would say in situations like that, it's to basically notify somebody in a store, somebody in the police, things like that. There's nothing wrong with that. Especially if you see a victim. Again, what I think what Casey's talking about, it would be more like an abduction type deal. It's very hard to see. We see a lot, but we can't move on it because we're in our own head saying, well, that's just probably this or that's just probably that, because human trafficking is not something that's so obvious. When we think human trafficking, we're thinking prostitution. And I will tell you that not all prostitution, there's a lot of people who believe all prostitution is trafficking. I will tell you that most of prostitution, there is trafficking, because the way the law is written is anytime a promise has been made, if there's been coercion or if there's been force used or anything, it immediately clicks it into human trafficking according to the laws.
Okay.
And so I would just say it goes back to, that what is that? The custom says you see something, say something.
Right.
It goes back to the same thing.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
Change.
Well, Kristi, I'm excited. I'm rooting for you. I'm voting for you. I think what you're doing is incredible. God bless you for that. And thank you for being on our show today and sharing. Talk a little bit before we get off of here. We've got about two and a half minutes left. Just tell everybody again what you're doing, and why you're doing it and who it benefits.
Okay. And I was listening to an expert talk this week. He was addressing some students, and he was talking, and Holly, you asked, what can we do for our own children? And he was talking about take their hands in your face, dads. Yes. Take your hands on their face and tell them you love them.
Yes.
You can't say it enough. And even I don't say it enough. I have a 17-year-old daughter and a 21-year-old son, and he's right. Just, they have to know. They have to know where they belong. They have to know who they are. And when my daughter leaves the house, especially lately, I've been saying, remember who you are. Mm-hmm. And she's part of why I'm involved too. And I do wonder also, and maybe this is for another show sometime, Ro, I was wondering, we talk about it being in our backyards. Just how close to home is it? I'm in the suburbs. Is it down the street? Is it in my neighborhood? And what are we possibly doing to feed it, and we don't even realize it? Is there something we're doing that we need to not be doing? Anyway, things maybe we're doing to feed it. But so with the competition, I am in the running, the semifinals for Miss Health and Fitness, and if I win, when I win, $20,000, it will go to make an immediate impact to the Treasured Vessels Foundation, which rehabilitates young girls and young women who are rescued from the human trafficking trade. And then long term, I'm in this for the long haul. I've already committed to Alicia. Let me help. Let me be a mentor if I can. Walk alongside these girls on their path to a healthier lifestyle, to a recovery.
Awesome.
Wonderful. Hey, Kristi, Ro, both of you guys, thank you so much for being part of the show. Sharing your stories. Anybody that wants to get involved, whether it's reaching out to Ro or reaching out to Kristi, voting for Kristi. Please, guys, just go out there. Like I said, it's not going to cost you a dime to go in and click that link and just keep voting and tell everybody in your family to do it. It won't cost them anything to do, but it will help her to win that money, to get that money to Treasured Vessels. Ro, God bless you. I had to leave for a brief moment because it's just
too much.
It is.
Yep.
It's too much, and I can't imagine. I just can't imagine. And you are a hero to me.
Thanks, Holly.
To all
Yep.
of us.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, God bless you all. Thank you so much. I hate that we're out of time. We're going to have to do another one. Holly, bless you for the Good Human series and your vision on that. And I'm with you all the way on this. These type of things, the fact that we need to bring awareness to so many things and get more people involved in, because Ro's right. There's a lot of good humans out there.
Mm-hmm.
We just got to find each other.
We got to find.
And
each
when we
other.
do, we're gonna be powerful, and then we can make the difference. So I want to thank you all for being here. We got to close out now. We're out of time. Thank you so much. We'll see you again soon.
Okay. Thank you.